Sometimes the purest kind of love doesn't come from a person. It comes from a dog, a friend who waits for you, trusts you, and never leaves your side, even when life takes you far away. This is the story of Ethan and his dog, Buddy, a story about loyalty, love, and a promise that was never broken. In a quiet little town in the United States, the mornings arrived softly. The sky slowly filled warm golden light. The streets stayed peaceful and calm, and the air felt fresh and cool. Like a new beginning every single day. In this quiet town lived a 15-year-old boy named Ethan, and beside him, almost like his shadow, was his golden retriever, Buddy. From the moment Ethan woke up, Buddy was already there, waiting, watching, loyal, always happy just to be near him. They didn't have the biggest house. They didn't have a perfect life, but they had something far more precious than all of that. They had each other. Buddy wasn't just a dog who slept in the corner. He was a listener, a friend, a gentle soul who somehow understood Ethan better than anyone else. When Ethan laughed, Buddy's tail wagged like sunshine dancing across the ground. When Ethan felt tired or overwhelmed, Buddy would lie quietly beside him, resting his head on Ethan's leg as if to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." Their friendship wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was peaceful, simple, and real. Every morning before school, they shared the same walk together down the quiet suburban road. The sound of birds in the trees, the soft morning breeze, and the feeling that, for a moment, everything in the world was okay. Sometimes, the most beautiful memories are the simple ones, the ones where nothing big happens, but your heart still remembers forever. And for Ethan and Buddy, this was the beginning of a bond that nothing in the world could break. In that quiet American town, Ethan and Buddy were never really apart. Wherever Ethan went, Buddy followed. And wherever Buddy rested, Ethan always felt safe. Buddy wasn't just part of the home. He was part of Ethan's heart. A constant presence. A quiet comfort. A friend who never asked for anything except love. When Ethan came home from school, Buddy was the first one to greet him. Not with questions, not with expectations, just pure, honest happiness. Sometimes Ethan would sit alone, in the backyard, thinking about life, school, the future, and all the worries that come with growing up. And Buddy would simply lie beside him, resting his head on Ethan's leg, breathing slowly and calmly, as if reminding him that everything was going to be okay. There was something special about the way Buddy listened. Ethan could talk to him about anything, about bad days, good days, fears, dreams, mistakes, and Buddy never judged him. He just stayed there, quiet, still, present. And slowly, Ethan began to realize something important. That sometimes the greatest kind of love doesn't need words. It doesn't need explanations. It just lives quietly between two hearts, trusting, caring, staying. To everyone else, Buddy was just a dog. But to Ethan, he was the one soul in the world who truly understood him. The one who saw him at his weakest and loved him just the same. Their bond wasn't loud or dramatic. It was gentle, steady, beautiful. And in those peaceful afternoons together, Ethan believed deep in his heart that Buddy would always be there, and that life would always stay just like this. Every morning before school, Ethan and Buddy, took the same quiet walk together. The streets were calm, the air was cool, and the world felt peaceful. As if it belonged only to them, Ethan would walk slowly, backpack on his shoulders, and Buddy would stay close by his side, matching every step. No leash, no commands, just trust. The neighbors often smiled when they saw them passing by. To them, it looked simple, just a boy and his dog starting another day. But to Ethan, those walks meant everything. They were the moments when his mind felt clear, when the worries of school, homework, and growing up seemed to fade away for a little while. There was only the sound of footsteps, the soft rustle of trees, and Buddy's gentle breathing beside him. Sometimes Ethan talked quietly to Buddy while they walked. He talked about classes, about friends, about life. And even though Buddy couldn't speak back, his presence felt like an answer, calm, steady, reassuring. And Buddy, he never looked away from Ethan for long. Every few steps he'd glance up as if checking, "You're still here, right? We're still together?" And every time, Ethan was their two friends, side by side, moving through the world together. Those mornings were never rushed. They didn't need to be exciting or loud. They were simply theirs, and without realizing it, Ethan began to build memories that would one day mean far more than he could ever imagine. Because sometimes the most important moments in life don't feel important while they're happening. They just feel normal, ordinary, peaceful until one day they become memories you would give anything to relive one more time. There were days when life didn't feel so easy for Ethan. School became harder, homework piled up, friends sometimes came and went, and growing up started to feel heavier than before. On those days, Ethan didn't always know what to say. He didn't want to talk to anyone. He didn't want attention. He just wanted silence, so he would sit in the backyard, staring at the sky, wondering if things would ever feel simple again. And every single time, Buddy would come quietly to his side. He didn't bark. He didn't jump. He didn't demand anything. He simply laid down beside Ethan, gently resting his head on Ethan's leg, breathing slowly and calmly, as if his only purpose in the world was to let Ethan know he wasn't alone. There was something incredibly peaceful about that silence, because it wasn't an empty silence. It was full of comfort, understanding, and love. Ethan didn't have to pretend around Buddy. He didn't have to be strong. He didn't have to smile when he didn't feel like smiling. He could simply be himself, a 15-year-old boy trying to figure out life with his best friend right beside him. And sometimes Ethan would whisper quietly, "I'm glad you're here." Buddy couldn't answer with words, but the gentle way he leaned closer said everything that needed to be said. In those quiet afternoons, Ethan learned something he would remember for the rest of his life, that some hearts don't love you because of what you do, or what you have, or who you pretend to be. They love you simply because you exist, and Buddy's heart belonged entirely to Ethan. For a long time, life stayed peaceful for Ethan and Buddy. Every day felt familiar, every moment felt safe, and it was easy to believe that things would always stay the same. But time has a way of moving forward even when we don't. Notice, the seasons slowly changed around them. Summer warmth turned into cool autumn evenings. Golden leaves fell quietly onto the sidewalks they used to walk together. Then winter arrived, and snow rested gently on rooftops and trees. And before they knew it, spring returned again, soft and bright. Through it all, Ethan kept growing. His world started to feel bigger. School became more serious. Plans for the future slowly began to appear. But Buddy stayed the same gentle soul he had always been, always waiting at the door, always walking beside Ethan, always watching him with those warm, loyal eyes. There is something beautiful and a little heartbreaking about how life moved forward for one of us, while another quietly stays behind. Ethan didn't realize it then. He didn't realize how precious those ordinary days truly were. Because when you are young, you believe there will always be more time, more mornings, more walks, more laughter. And Buddy, he never worried about the future. He didn't think about tomorrow. He simply loved Ethan in every single moment he was given. 2 lives, side by side, moving through the same world, but heading toward a day when everything would quietly begin to change. One afternoon, everything began to change. Ethan was 15 now, and life was slowly pulling him forward. School trips, activities, new responsibilities. The kind that meant he couldn't always be home the way he used to be. On that day, a car waited quietly in the driveway. Suitcases were lifted inside. Goodbyes were being said. And the house didn't feel the same anymore. Buddy watched all of it from the front yard. He didn't bark. He didn't run. He didn't understand the words being spoken, but he understood one thing very clearly. Ethan was leaving. Ethan knelt down and wrapped his arms around Buddy's neck, pressing his face gently into that soft golden fur he loved so much. He whispered to him like he always did, telling him he'd be back soon, telling him everything would be okay, telling him that nothing between them would ever change. And Buddy believed him, because dogs don't doubt the ones they love. Their hearts trust completely. To Ethan, this was just a short trip, a small step into the bigger world waiting for him. He thought life would pause here, that everything would stay the same until he returned. But for Buddy, this wasn't just another day. It was the first day he had to watch the person he loved most walk away. And as the car slowly rolled down the street, Buddy didn't chase it. He simply sat there at the gate, eyes fixed on the road, quiet, still hoping that the boy he loved would come back soon. That evening, after Ethan left, the house felt different, quieter, still, almost as if a piece of its heart had gone missing. Buddy walked slowly to the front gate, the same place where he had last seen Ethan. He sat down gently on the cool ground, his eyes fixed on the empty road ahead. He didn't whine. He didn't panic. He simply waited. Because in Buddy's world, love meant staying. Love meant being there when the person you cared for came home again. So he stayed right where Ethan had left him. The sun slowly sank beneath the horizon, washing the sky in soft colors of gold and pink. Street lights flickered on one by one, and the neighborhood settled into quiet evening life. But Buddy, he didn't move. Every sound made his ears lift. Every car that passed made his heart hope. Every distant voice made him listen closer. Maybe this one. Maybe he's finally home. But each time the road went quiet again, and still, Buddy waited because he believed, with all the innocence and faith of a loving heart, that Ethan would return through that same street, just like he always had. Too. Buddy, it didn't matter how long it took. minutes, hours. It was all the same. Home would never feel complete until Ethan walked back through that gate. So that night, under the soft glow of the streetlights, Buddy kept his silent watch. The first of many long evenings spent waiting for the boy he loved. The days after Ethan left began to pass slowly at first, then quietly, one after another, like pages turning in a book. And every single day, Buddy went to the same place, the front gate. Morning light would spill across the street, birds would begin to sing, and the town would slowly wake up. And Buddy would already be there, sitting patiently, eyes fixed on the road, waiting for the one face he loved most. Neighbors walked by, cars came and went, children laughed and played. Life continued like it always does, but Buddy never stopped. Watching sometimes he sat tall and alert, ears lifted. Sometimes he laid down gently, resting his head between his paws. But his eyes never truly left that road. He didn't count the hours. He didn't measure the days. Dogs don't understand time the way we do. They only understand love, and to Buddy, love meant believing. Believing that Ethan would come back the same way he always had. Sunny afternoons passed, quiet evenings followed, then cloudy skies, then soft rain. And still, Buddy waited. He waited when the world was bright and warm. He waited when the sky turned gray. He waited when raindrops fell onto the pavement and soaked gently into his golden fur, because in Buddy's heart there was never a question, never a doubt, only faith. Faith that the boy he loved would return. And so while the rest of the world kept moving forward, Buddy stayed right there, watching the road, hoping, believing, loving in the only way he knew how. When the sun went down and the world began to fall asleep, Buddy still stayed near the gate. The warm colors of sunset faded into deep blue night. Streetlights flickered on. Houses grew quiet. Families gathered inside. Doors closed. Laughter softened. But Buddy didn't go inside. He lay down gently near the gate, his head resting against his paws, eyes still focused on the road. The same road Ethan had left on at night. The world feels different, quieter, heavier. Every sound seems louder. Every silence feels deeper. And in that silence, Buddy waited. Sometimes the breeze would move through the trees. Sometimes a car would pass in the distance. And each time Buddy would lift his head just a little, hoping maybe this time, maybe now, maybe Ethan is finally coming home. But then the sound would fade, and the night would grow still again. Inside the house, lights slowly turned off one by one. The world rested, but love doesn't sleep. So Buddy kept watch under the soft glow of the streetlights. Eyes gentle, heart faithful, never understanding where Ethan had gone, only knowing that one day he would return. And while the moon traveled slowly across the sky and the stars shimmered quietly above, Buddy waited. All alone, yet never giving up on the boy he loved more than anything in the world. As the days slowly turned into months, something began to change. But he was still the same loyal soul he had always been, still waiting at the gate, still watching the road, still believing Ethan would return. But time was gently touching him. His once bright golden fur began to fade into softer shades of cream. Little gray hairs appeared around his muzzle. His steps became slower, his breaths a little heavier. He didn't run the way he used to. He didn't play as long as before, but his heart never changed, because love does not grow old. Even when the body does. Neighbors sometimes noticed him sitting quietly near the gate, no longer full of youthful energy, but full of patience, full of faith. Some would pause for a moment, smile softly, and whisper to themselves, "He's still waiting." And yes, he was. Waiting not because he had to, not because anyone told him to, but because his heart simply didn't know anything else. To Buddy, Ethan wasn't gone. He was just late. And when you love someone the way Buddy loved Ethan, you don't stop believing, even when the world changes around you, even when your legs grow weak, even when your body grows tired. You still wait, you still hope, you still love. And so, under the warm light of countless quiet afternoons, an older, slower, gentler Buddy remained at the same gate watching, the same road with the same faithful eyes he'd always had. As more time passed, Buddy's steps began to change. He still made his way to the front gate every day, but now he moved a little slower and rested a little more often. His legs sometimes trembled beneath him. His breaths came deeper and heavier. The world that once felt light and playful now felt just a little harder to walk through. But even when his body began to struggle, his heart never did, because every morning Buddy still stood up, no matter how tired he felt, and walked carefully toward the gate. Some days he would sit for hours. Other days he would lie down gently, his head resting against the cool ground as he watched the empty road. He didn't understand time. He didn't understand distance. He didn't understand why Ethan hadn't come back yet, but he did understand love. And love to Buddy meant staying. Neighbors noticed how slowly he walked now. They saw the softness in his eyes, the quiet tiredness in the way he moved. Some would whisper kindly, "Poor old boy, he's still waiting." And yes, he was, because Buddy wasn't waiting out of habit. He wasn't waiting because he didn't know what else to do. He was waiting because his heart refused to believe that the boy he loved would never return. So even when standing hurt, even when resting felt easier, Buddy still chose the gate. Heavy steps, gentle eyes, a loyal heart that refused to give up. And while the world kept moving forward, Buddy stayed right there, faithful, tired, but unbroken. One night, the sky above the quiet town began to change. Dark clouds gathered slowly over the rooftops. The wind grew stronger. The trees began to sway. And soon, the first drops of rain started to fall. Most dogs run inside during storms. They hide. They search for safety. They wait for the noise to pass. But Buddy, he did what he had always done. He went to the gate. Rain fell heavier now, soaking into his golden fur. Thunder rolled softly in the distance. Street lights blurred into glowing halos through the falling water. Still, he watched the road. He didn't bark. He didn't panic. He simply waited with the same quiet faith he had carried in his heart since the day Ethan left. To Buddy, it didn't matter whether the sun was shining or the sky was falling apart. Love doesn't depend on weather. Love stays. So, while families gathered safely inside their warm homes, Buddy remained outside beneath the rain, eyes fixed forward, ears lifting at every distant sound. Maybe this storm was the one Ethan would return in. Maybe through the rain he would see that familiar car, that familiar face, that familiar smile. And so through the cold, through the darkness, through the endless, steady rhythm of falling rain, Buddy stayed, a quiet, faithful heart standing alone. In the storm, still believing, still hoping, still loving with everything he had left. After the storm passed, the night became calm again, but inside Buddy something had changed. He was tired now. Not just the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but a deeper kind of tiredness that comes when the body has walked a very long road. His legs no longer carried him the way they once had. Standing took effort. Walking took strength, so instead of sitting tall at the gate, Buddy slowly laid himself down. He rested his head gently against the cool ground, his eyes still fixed on the same empty road he had watched for so many days, so many nights, so many seasons. He didn't give up. He didn't stop believing. He just didn't have the strength anymore. Every sound still made his ears lift. Every passing car still made his heart rise for a moment. But the hope that once burst like light inside him now glowed softly, quietly, like the last warm ember in a fading fire. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't angry. He was simply tired. But even in that tiredness, there was love, love that had stayed through sunshine and storms, through laughter and silence, through years of waiting for the boy who had once called his name with so much joy. And so as the night wrapped gently around the quiet town, Buddy continued his final watch, lying peacefully near the gate, eyes calm, heart faithful still, waiting for Ethan to come home. When morning finally returned to the quiet little town, the sky began to glow with soft golden light once again. Birds slowly woke from their sleep. The air felt cool and gentle. Another ordinary day was quietly beginning, and Buddy was still at the gate. But this morning felt different. There was no struggle in him anymore, no restless shifting, no tired effort to stand, just peace. He lay there quietly, his head resting softly against the ground, his eyes warm and calm as they looked toward the same familiar road he had watched for so long. He wasn't waiting with worry. He wasn't waiting with fear. He was simply still, as if his heart finally understood that love doesn't end, even when life begins to fade. The world around him carried on as usual. Cars drove by. Leaves rustled in the breeze. The sun slowly rose into the sky, but inside that small front yard, time felt like it had stopped. For Buddy, there was no anger, no regret, no loneliness, only gratitude for the boy he had loved with every single beat of his faithful heart. And as the soft sunlight warmed his golden fur, Buddy closed his eyes for a moment, calm, quiet, at peace still, holding on to Ethan's memory as gently as the morning light itself. A few days later, a car rolled slowly back into the quiet little town. Inside that car was Ethan, older now, taller, wiser in some ways, but still the same boy at heart. To him, this was just another return home, another visit, another familiar driveway. He stepped out of the car with a small smile on his face, breathing in the air of the town he had grown up in. Everything felt warm, safe, unchanged. He looked at the house, the trees, the street, and for a moment it felt like time had never moved at all. In Ethan's mind, Buddy was still the same happy golden shadow that followed him everywhere, still full of energy, still ready to run to him the second he arrived. He expected to hear the sound of paws rushing across the yard. He expected to feel that joyful bump against his legs. He expected to see those bright, loving eyes looking up at him, but the yard was quiet, too quiet. There was no familiar bark, no running steps, no warm welcome waiting at the gate, just silence. Ethan paused for a moment, confused, but not yet worried. He thought maybe Buddy was just resting somewhere. Maybe he would come running any second now, because in Ethan's heart, Buddy was still unbreakable, unchangeable, forever young. He had no idea that while he had been out there, growing up, Buddy had been waiting. Ethan walked toward the front door, still expecting Buddy to appear at any second. But instead of a joyful bark, he was met by silence. Then, slowly, a family member stepped outside. Their eyes were gentle, their voice soft, and with just a few quiet words, Ethan's world changed forever. They told him that Buddy had waited for him every single day, at the gate. In the sun, in the rain, in the heat, in the cold, morning, and night, waiting for the boy he loved to come home. Ethan stood there, frozen. He didn't speak. He COULDN single quotes T, because suddenly every memory came crashing back all at once. Walks, the laughter, the soft fur beneath his hands. The way Buddy used to look at him like he was the most important person in the world, and then he learned that Buddy had grown old while waiting, that his legs had become weak while waiting, that his breathing had grown slow and heavy while waiting, and still he never stopped, until one quiet morning, his tired heart finally rested, still at the gate, still facing the road, still waiting for Ethan. Those words didn't shout. They didn't echo. They simply fell softly into Ethan's chest like the heaviest weight he had ever felt. Because love that pure doesn't break loudly, it breaks gently and forever.
There were days when life didn't feel so easy for Ethan. School became harder. Homework piled up. Friends sometimes came and went. And growing up started to feel heavier than before. On those days, Ethan didn't always know what to say. He didn't want to talk to anyone. He didn't want attention. He just wanted silence. So he would sit in the backyard, staring at the sky, wondering if things would ever feel simple again. And every single time, Buddy would come quietly to his side. He didn't bark. He didn't jump. He didn't demand anything. He simply laid down beside Ethan, gently resting his head on Ethan's leg, breathing slowly and calmly, as if his only purpose in the world was to let Ethan know he wasn't alone. There was something incredibly peaceful about that silence, because it wasn't an empty silence. It was full of comfort, understanding, and love. Ethan didn't have to pretend around Buddy. He didn't have to be strong. He didn't have to smile when he didn't feel like smiling. He could simply be himself. A 15-year-old boy trying to figure out life with his best friend right beside him. And sometimes, Ethan would whisper quietly, "I'm glad you're here." Buddy couldn't answer with words, but the gentle way he leaned closer said everything that needed to be said. In those quiet afternoons, Ethan learned something he would remember for the rest of his life. That some hearts don't love you because of what you do, or what you have, or who you pretend to be. They love you simply because you exist. And Buddy's heart belonged entirely to Ethan.
The next morning, Ethan woke up before the rest of the house. He stepped outside quietly into the cool morning air as the sun slowly began to rise over the town he had always called home, and without even thinking about it, his feet began to follow the same path he had once walked every single day, the same sidewalk, the same turns, the same gentle morning breeze. Only this time, he was walking alone. There was no soft sound of pause beside him, no happy breathing, no warm presence at his side, just silence. With every step, memories came back to him, moments he had forgotten, details he had overlooked, times when he thought those walks were nothing special. Now they meant everything. He remembered talking to Buddy when no one else would listen. He remembered laughing when Buddy did something silly. He remembered the peace he always felt when his best friend walked beside him. And now he felt the weight of every moment he had taken for granted. Ethan stopped for a moment and looked down the road. This was the road Buddy had watched for so long. The road he believed Ethan would one day return on. The road that held years of hope and love. And with a quiet, shaking breath, Ethan finally understood. Buddy had never once doubted him, never stopped believing, never stopped loving, even when it hurt, even when it was lonely, even when his body grew weak. He had waited. And now Ethan walked that road with a heart full of gratitude and a sadness he knew would stay with him forever. Because some friends only come into our lives once. And they change us for the rest of our lives. Ethan stopped at the end of the road and looked up at the sky, painted softly with morning light. For the first time since he had returned home, his heart felt completely open. He thought about Buddy, about the years they had shared, about the simple moments that had quietly become the most important memories of his life. And there, standing in the stillness of the morning, Ethan made a promise. He promised that he would never again take love for granted. He promised that he would cherish the people and the moments that life gave him. He promised that he would remember the loyalty of one dog who never gave up on him. He whispered gently into the quiet air, "Thank you for loving me. Even when I wasn't here, I won't forget you, not ever." And he meant it, because Buddy had taught him something no book, no teacher, no lesson ever could, that the purest kind of love is simple, silent, and faithful. A love that doesn't demand anything in return. A love that stays, even when life changes. And as the sunlight warmed his face, Ethan felt something new inside his heart. Not just sadness, but gratitude, because he realized that some goodbyes don't truly end anything. Sometimes they simply change the way love continues. Buddy was gone from the world, but he would never be gone from Ethan's heart, and that was a promise Ethan knew he would keep for the rest of his life. Years passed. Ethan grew older. Life moved forward, the way it always does. New faces entered his world. New memories were made, but one memory, one bond, never faded. Buddy stayed with him, in his thoughts, in his heart. In the quiet moments when life slowed down, Ethan still felt that same gentle presence beside him. And because of that, he decided to do something meaningful, something that would keep Buddy's love alive long after both of them were gone. So, one day, a small animal shelter opened in that quiet American town. Nothing huge, Nothing fancy, Dot, just a warm, safe place for dogs who had nowhere else to go. Some lost, some abandoned, some forgotten, but not anymore, because now they had a place where someone would wait for them. Someone who understood what loyalty truly meant, Dot, and on the wooden sign above the door were just two simple words: for Buddy. Every dog that stepped inside that shelter was treated with kindness, with patience, with love, Dot, the same kind of love Buddy had given so freely all his life. And sometimes late in the evening, when the shelter grew quiet, Ethan would sit outside beneath the fading light and smile softly to himself, because he knew that Buddy's story had not ended, Dot. It had simply changed. Love had become legacy, and somewhere, in a place beyond time, a golden retriever watched over him with the same gentle eyes he had once lifted toward that long, waiting road. Faithful, patient, loving, Dot, forever, Dot. And Ethan whispered into the quiet air, "Thank you, Buddy, for everything, because some friends don't just walk beside us for a while. They stay with us for life." Some stories stay with us not because they were loud, but because they were true. Buddy never asked for anything. He didn't need words. He didn't chase attention. He simply loved quietly, faithfully, completely, Dot, and somewhere along the way, that love changed a boy's life forever. If you've ever had a pet who waited for you, who trusted you, who loved you without question, then you already know that kind of love doesn't fade, Dot. It becomes a part of us, Dot, and it stays always, Dot. Thank you for sharing this moment with Buddy.